Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. And I've put together the top 7 key market drivers I look at when analyzing a real estate market. Go to sethferguson.org to get your free copy. Our guest today is a Canadian who invests in the USA for lower property taxes, more favorable landlord laws, and lower purchase prices. He's an armchair investor who can turn a property around without ever seeing it from the comfort of his own home. Glen Sutherland joins us today. Glen, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Seth. This is great.
Yeah, really pumped. You actually live 30 minutes down the street from me, so it's nice to have a fellow Canadian who invests in the U.S. on the show.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. And yeah, it's nice to be, we'll have to do coffee another time.
Yeah, we'll take our dog sleds to the Tim Hortons and get a coffee. A double-double, as we say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So let's kick things off and talk about your real estate goals right now. Where are you looking right now?
Okay, well, I guess whenever people are mostly talking about goals, I had like a number figure, and for the last couple of years on my visor, like above, when I drive a pickup truck, and right on the visor, when I flip it down, it has my goals. It has Canadian property goals, my American property goals, what I want as a total, and I'd see it because I keep the visor down. I'd see it every day what I was going for, and I actually hit my goals back in the fall. And people will often ask you, like, well, why do you still work? But it's because I still do have a 9-to-5 job. I still go out and work my regular shift, and people go, why do you do it? And one of the reasons I do still work it is because I've reached the spot where I could survive off of my real estate, but I want to thrive off of my real estate. And on top of that, I had a very bad December with my real estate. I had probably like 6 properties go vacant all at the same time in December, which I thought was, mathematically it was crazy, but it was just a huge thing. And you realize that you're like, man, if I still didn't have the 9-to-5, this would be a very stressful period. Like, and like my real estate still cash flowed, but it took a huge cut. Like, that 6 properties, you're missing the income, but you're still paying the mortgage, the property taxes, and whatever bills are related to it. But you don't have, it would just be like, and in December too, like that's possibly the worst month to actually have that happen.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely. So like you talked about, you hit your goal. So what does that look like? Was it, an income level you needed to hit, or like a gross dollar volume of real estate owned?
Yeah. So it was a gross dollar value. It was basically what I made in my 9-to-5. And that's what I wanted to make in the real estate, just to have it coming in. And I'm not counting a lot of those, I'm not counting refinances, I'm not counting flips, I'm talking about just the straight cash flow. I'm not, all that other stuff is bonus, but right now too, by not using that, I can recycle it back into more projects, and I don't actually have to take it out and spend it on my day-to-day life.
Yeah, gotcha. So let's get into why you are a Canadian investing in the U.S., because lots of people would think it's, it doesn't really make sense. So,
okay, you know what? Because I know what your questions are going to be. Let's do the property one, because.
Oh, okay, yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, because I know what's coming up. So the property, like, it's kind of a story of how I got to the U.S. and it's kind of the same thing. So this pivotal property that you're going to ask me about, and sometimes you're saying it's all about big wins, big losses, and this is one that it was a learning lesson for me. And what happened was I bought a property in Galt in Cambridge, Ontario, Canada, to get a little bit bigger. So, but it was a duplex, and I had the best tenant I've ever had. I think still to this day, there's one other tenant that rivals it, but this was my best tenant because they moved in. They basically put new floors in, fixed the hood range, did a new stove in, all on their own dime, didn't tell me about it, which I guess could be, but they did good work, so it worked out. But they wanted to move after living there for a year, and they wanted to move to Strathroy, which is, for here, it's the other side of London. It's like an hour and 45-minute drive. And when they did that, I said, well, hey, have you found a property yet? And they said no. So anyway, we worked it out, got them into a property there, and kept them because they were amazing tenants. they've totally renovated that property now. I still own that property. But what happened was once I was comfortable with the distance of being like close to 2 hours away from my property, then it was, well, what's stopping me from going just across the border or even going to different provinces? Because not to totally rip down on Ontario, but we don't have the best landlord laws. It's a tenant-friendly state, and
it's like
our province.
It's like in California, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's similar to like a New York City or a California or a Chicago, where you're gonna have the laws are gonna be in the favor of the tenant if you have to do an eviction or go through any sort of tribunal to do it. So I still have Canadian properties, but I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go for like these guys, these people like just pushed me out. So it was awesome. It got me thinking about going farther and farther. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to go to like, Detroit or Buffalo, then why not just pick what I think is the best markets I could possibly pick in the United States? Because I'm like, either way, I'm going to have to go to property management, which I was self-managing before. I'm going to have to reach out into all these. I'm going to have to hire contractors. I'm going to have to stop doing work myself, which is the greatest thing ever. If you're a landlord and you're renting this yourself, and when you finally get properties that you don't have to do any of it, even if it costs you a little bit extra, it's a godsend to have your time back. And it's a great stepping stool to actually working yourself into retirement, because in all honesty, if you have to do this property management, it's not, you're still working.
It's
actually
a job and a half, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And as you're growing, it's working, right? Because I constantly am searching for properties, and I'm actually planning once I finish my refi in a couple weeks to use the money. I'm going to basically pay her for like several years, not up front, but I'm just going to keep a balance for her. And yeah, because it's just it could speed up your life just by letting things go into other people's hands. If you can get the trust level that you can let people take over, which is very hard, because I am very controlling, and even people who do joint ventures with me, they'll see that like I am all over every single step all the way through, and I'll copy you on all the emails, but I still take control of everything. Even if I said, oh, that's your part, I'll still be in it. I'll still be in it.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you brought that up, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves in the same boat because it's their baby. But,
oh, yeah.
But it seems every single guest who scaled their business up has always said the hardest thing is letting go. But once they do, it's the best thing they ever did.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's exactly true, because I still self-manage my properties here that are local, but it's every time a tenant moves over, it like really crosses my mind. Do I let these go, or do I, in all honesty, I'm going to let them go unless I'm using it as a tool to be able to accept our RSP money, which is like a 401k for Americans.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason to keep the property still, because otherwise they're so full of equity that you're like, you could refinance, but then they don't cash flow, and you're like, I can do more with the money than the properties I have right now. That some of them are just nostalgic. They've had them for a long time, and you just keep rolling them over.
Yeah, for sure. So, so you acquired the place in Strathroy, and then it had you expand into other markets. So, what are some of the things that you were looking at in order to find markets that you wanted to invest in the U.S.?
Okay, well, like I was saying about the landlord laws,
yeah.
I first I got a list of all the proper things I sort of wanted, right? And I had a list of cities, and I sort of just crossed them off until I got down to like 5 or 6 states that were doing everything that I was looking for, and probed down into cities I wanted. But I wanted it to be like, if I had to do an eviction, I wanted the eviction to go in my favor. I didn't want to have a battle. I didn't want to have a long court date. And all of this information is all public. Like I can't even remember the site now because I haven't looked at it in a while, but you can just type it in, like landlord friendly states, and you can link through, and there's ones that'll break down all the landlord and tenant friendly laws and how they're decided. And you can just pick right through, like just pick what you want, right? It's like going to buy a car. You pick exactly what you want instead of just getting whatever's at the closest dealership to your house.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I wanted landlord friendly. I wanted returns. I wanted a certain level of return, right? So the nice general basic rule to start with is the 1% rule, right? And so you could start with that, and then you can rule out a lot of places that don't hit that. So it's just a good thing. I don't use that at all anymore, but I'm using different metrics. But it was a good way to start, and it would cut off places that weren't going to make what you wanted. Like, for instance, I really loved Colorado, but I couldn't get the 1% rule, so I'm not in Colorado. So it was just one of those things that, besides that, they had all the good laws and everything that was going in my favor. Property taxes. I was looking for a state with low property taxes. And that's one of the reasons I bought my first property in Alabama, because they have Tennessee, and I think Hawaii are the lowest property taxes in the entire United States. So it was like, it's just a bottom line number. You're like, I'm going to buy a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house, and instead of being in certain states where it's like $1,500 a month, which still sounds cheap compared to Ontario taxes, but I can get them for like $500 or $400 a month in taxes, and it's just like, hey, you can add a little bit extra money to it. And then you got down to a bunch of them, and there's a lot of, I'm not going to rip into, I'm going to sort of skip over saying like names of places that I didn't like, but there's one state that has really, really good cash flow, but the numbers didn't work because they didn't have enough big industry in the town. And so I wanted a town that it was growing, there was new businesses coming in, and it wasn't like there was like one massive car plant or something, and that's everything. That's the only thing in that town, because you don't want, I think I learned this from Joe Fairless, which I know has been on a guest here before, but you don't want to be one business to be 20% even of the whole of the whole employment sector, because they go huge cuts. People can't pay their rent. You just don't want that. You want places that are growing. Even you think that you could be based off of population, but it's not a good standard, because some places have good populations. Some places have small populations, but they still have a lot of stuff coming in, which makes them still really good markets. And if you can get into a really small market, which is where I am, well, my first market was a small market, and there's actually a lot less competition. But it also means that there is a lot less wholesalers, and there's a lot less of everything you're looking for. But it's sometimes easier to get some deals, because unless I'm buying a foreclosure, I don't buy on the MLS anymore. It's very, very hard to find a deal that, because sorry to go on a complete tangent, but whenever I'm looking for a deal, I want something, even if I'm buying it for myself, I want it to be a good enough deal that I could joint venture it, and that it could be split, and someone would still be okay with the amount of money if they pay for the whole thing. And that's not easy to do. You're basically going to have to find something to 60 to 70 cents on the dollar, or better if you can get better than that. But like, that's your minimum deal requirement, and that is really hard to find on the multiple listing site.
Yeah, and for somebody who's international going across the border, how have you set up your deal funnel? Let's say, so you are able to get those properties.
Deal funnel. Okay, so I think a lot of it is connections. So well, that's the whole name of real estate. Yeah. People think it's about real estate, but the whole game is connections and knowing people and working together, because that's how you're going to find your best deals. So I think off the start, it's just to be part of whatever community you're trying to get into. So if you're going into, I'm trying to think of whatever state you're going into, and then whatever county, because they like counties down in the States, go find that county, go find the local RIA, go find their Facebook group, go find lots of Facebook groups for that city, and just be active, be part of it, and let people know that what you want trying to do is buy stuff. And then if you start actually asking and probing into questions and stuff, be prepared to close, because otherwise you're just a tire kicker and they won't come back to you. Because some of my best people who are bringing me the best deals, they bring them and they'll even go take videos for me, and they're just for me. They'll take photos for me, and because they know that if it hits my criteria, that I'll buy it. And if they know that, they'll go do extra work for you, because that's what they're named. They want to roll these properties and keep going. So you help them, they help you, everybody's happy. But if you waste too many people's time, they won't help you.
Yeah, no, that's such an important point. And for yourself, have you developed any routines or rituals that have helped make you successful?
You know what? That's probably my biggest weakness, that I don't have like really good routines and rituals. Like I sit and I'll go work for crazy amounts of hours, and then I won't do anything for like 3 or 4 days. And sometimes that's when the deal came in and you just missed it. Because sometimes these things close in 3 days and you've missed the whole thing. So, and that's one of the reasons you got to know like your, I guess your pros and cons of yourself. And I know that's one of my things that I'll sit there and go work for 12 hours and then I won't do anything for a couple of days. So that's where I want to hire the VA to even it out. Just like 4 hours a day, come in Monday to Friday, 4 hours a day, and just go through deals. I'll just forward it to an email address and you can just go through a couple hundred wholesaler deals and it's a foreclosure list and see what you can find in there. And even if you just spreadsheet it for me, save me a ton of time just to go through as one of their chores anyway.
Yeah. Well, even like managing a portfolio from a distance, it forces you to get organized in some sense. So you have everything, laid out. So like, do you review like your portfolio every month or every?
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, that way. I'm very organized that way. So I'll review it probably twice a month and keep my accounting up to date and just the Excel sheets of everything, how everything's going. But I scan every single document that comes in, like everything, even the dumb stuff, and I folderize it. I'd use a combination of Google Drive and Dropbox for depending on what they are. And so I have at all times, I use my Dropbox as a folder that's sort of the most recent statement of everything folderized by properties. So that if I want to get a loan, I can just be like, boom, here's the docs, here's the link to my Dropbox, and boom, 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 boom. It's everything. They can go close it fast, even if I've never talked to them before, because they don't need to come to me for anything. But I don't give them everything. So I keep my Google Drive, and I've actually paid to have it expanded because it's not enough. But I keep everything in there. And I'm this way with my personal life too. I was telling a friend, I can go back to 2007 and tell you what I've spent on groceries in a month because I keep track of everything. And that's how detailed I am, which I think is great for people who work with me because it's all laid out. There's nothing to the surprise. But yeah, I'm very into detail, but it's not like a set schedule. I sort of I find spots. I have like wife and kids, so it's just like I find spots and just zone in and go for it.
Yeah, I'd be worried about tracking the groceries because it would be like, 2008 was a good year for cooking.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you mentioned loans. So as a Canadian investing in your first couple properties in the States, did you have any hurdles that you had to jump through to get financing?
Yeah, no, that's the biggest hurdle is to get financing. Off the start, the very first property I bought in cash, right? And I figured I would figure it out. And I am also the kind of guy that just jumps right in. So when I bought that property, I didn't have my corporation set up. I didn't have anything set up. I didn't have an ITIN, which is another thing if you're Canadian to set up. I didn't have an EIN for the corporation. I didn't have anything set up at all. I didn't have the property manager set up. And so I bought the property and I had 2 weeks to close. And in that time, I was on vacation and I was going to like the tourist booth every day to get them to print off stuff. I'd sign it, I'd send it back, and I set up a corporation, everything. Did a whole thing in a week on vacation. But that's not the way to do it. That's the most stressful, high, painful way to do it. But the second and third properties and fourth properties, then I started closing with financing, and I refinanced the first property into a loan, and it got easier. Some of the tricks, I guess, a lot of there's a lot of loans out there for Canadians. They're just not easy to find, and people tend to look for them in the wrong spot. A lot of times people will call up Wells Fargo or Bank of America and be like, hey, can I get a loan? And then like, yeah, just sure, give us your social security number. And you don't have a social security number. So they don't work with you. They won't work with you. Even the local little banks, it'll work. Some of them will work. It's hit or miss. You're dealing with a lot of online banks, and you're looking for foreign national programs. So you can Google foreign national programs. Do your research though, because there's a lot of little banks and a lot of people offering private money, which just isn't real. And and so do some research, look for Bigger Pockets reviews on these things, look for an online presence. But there is a lot of options out there. I'm currently refinancing 7 properties right now, and I'm having no problem. And as it will get easier, because as you grow, once the biggest hurdle is once you have 2 tax returns in the United States, everything is a lot easier, because now you have proof of history, you have proof of paying these other loans, and there's a lot of things they can use because everyone, even if you talk to Canadian banks, there's substitutions and stuff. They can make substitutions to make some of these programs that aren't for foreign nationals work for you, because they can work in all these problems that you have by saying, well, you're worried about his social security number not having one, but he has a great credit score in Canada, which we don't really care about. But hey, we can show his mortgage payment statements. He's made his mortgage for years, and you can start working around, and the rates will start coming down. They'll start high, and that's okay, because you can refinance these things. And Americans like to front end the loans, so your fees are when you set it up. So when you go to break it, it's usually 0. You've already paid all the fees. So you can roll into something better once you have some better experience and better thing, or just find someone else who's already doing it and partner with them. And you can leverage all these things for free, basically, because you may have to pay for the actual thing, but it's still a great deal. Like, I wish I would have done that. I wish I had somebody that I could have even just given my money to, instead of, because off the start I bought a few turnkey properties, and I could have bought better properties if I was partnering with someone who was in the game.
Yeah, for sure. And can you talk about how the exchange rate with the dollar affects, because right now you're paying, you have a 30% premium. We're recording this in June 2019.
Yeah.
So Canadian dollar sucks right now. How does that affect you?
Well, the thing is, it goes both directions, right? So even if the dollar was at, so say it's like $1.30 right now, right? You have to pay. So even if it went down to even 50 cents, which would be crazy, right? We're not living in the States, so you still got to bring it back. So you're going to lose it in one direction or the other, right? If it's at $1, but you're going to get paid from your refinance, because I like to buy properties that I can go in, renovate them, and refinance or flip, either way, and get your money back, start over again. So the money's going to come back across the border. So you're going to do across and back likely. And so if it's at like $1.35 or if it's at 80 cents, you're still going to have the gap between going there and going back, and it's going to be similar because you're going to do it fairly fast. A lot of my money I've left in the States now, so I'm not paying those back and forth things. But there's lots of ways to get much cheaper money across the border too. I do not work for or get any money for saying this, but I am a huge fan of Knightsbridge FX in Toronto, and they will convert money at really close to the dollar. And people will go, well, I got a great deal from one of the big 5 banks, and I can get the employee discount. It's still like 2% you're paying. If you go to them, it'll be like 0.5% or less. Like, it's phenomenally different. And if you're trying to buy houses, that's a huge amount of money. It might be the difference of, instead of sending 100,000, I don't know. I'm not going to do math in my head, but you can save a couple $1,000 just in a transaction, which is huge, right?
Yeah. No, I absolutely. So how has getting into real estate changed your life so far?
Well, at this point, it's added a lot of extra work. So I do my own podcast, and so I have to organize that and record that and edit that, and then I'm doing all this real estate, and it's a lot of extra work. It makes my balance sheet look a lot better, but like I said at the start, I'm not I'm reusing everything. I'm not taking any money out of the business. I think the only kind of personal thing I bought out of is I bought a laptop with the corporation, and they pay for my internet and stuff like that around the house.
That's all legit though, right?
So, yeah. But so there's some small perks, but in all honesty, I'm not really enjoying the benefits of owning all this real estate. I just let it regurgitate, and who knows? Hopefully no one from my work's listening, but maybe I'm thinking next year I can I'm thinking I'll be double or triple what I was in the fall, what I was making for my monthly thing. And that would be a safe number to start living off it instead of working. Cause yeah.
Oh wow, that's and you're kind of doing what most business owners as they're scaling, like you're reinvesting back in the business, right? You're not bleeding the company dry, and paying yourself everything.
It's so much easier to grow if you don't have, if you're not eating all the money out of it, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. So let's look. Let's say 10 years down the road, where do you think you will be with your portfolio?
Well, 10 years down the road, I'm going to have this is going to sound like the biggest faux pas, but I am probably going to pay off my house, right?
Yeah.
So I might even pay my house off next year, but it's the biggest like thing not to say as a real estate investor. But the thing about it is I have a HELOC set up on the thing, and I use the money to qualify for loans. I use the money to qualify because a lot of things they need proof of funds, and I use my house as a way to do it. And so a lot of times now they're asking me to hold a ridiculous amount of money in a bank account. And if I'm going to hold in a bank account, why don't I just hold it in my house?
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking. And then because I can't write off this house either, and so it will reduce a payment for myself. But it's still a silly thing that I back and forth on it. But 10 years from now, well, actually, even I bet you a year from now, I'll have year or two anyway. I'll have no mortgage. I'll probably be doing strictly joint ventures instead of doing some of them on my own. I still have trouble with it because I still want to do it myself. And if I have the money to do it myself, it's the hardest thing to just go, stop, hit my hand, stop doing it, let other people do it. I do the whole thing as like basically an education thing. So when they're done, they can decide to do another one with me, or they can go completely on their own. They've got all the contacts, they got all the thing, they're settled, they know the property manager, everything is good. So I think that's a lot of what I want to do is to get, because I don't want to do mentoring and I don't want to do a course. So that this is the easiest way for me to do it. And people don't like paying for those things, so it's free this way. Really, they pay for, they get all their money back in like a couple months. So I think that's what I'll be doing strictly is I won't be working. I'll probably be sitting out on my deck most of the day and playing on a laptop. I'll probably build a nice shade spot so the laptop can actually see it. And I'll have at least one virtual assistant running, probably by that time, maybe a couple, and they will do the majority of the work. And but I need something to do. Like I can't sit still. I can't sit still. So I don't know, maybe I'll take up woodworking or something.
Yeah.
But that's the hard part. People are like, why don't you just quit? I can't quit. I won't be able to. I need something to do. I won't be able to just sit around the couch and watch soaps. That's just not me.
You'll have to get into public speaking or something and go for the tour.
Well, I've been doing that. I've been out in Milton and Richmond Hill and London. Yeah, I'm speaking at Durham REI in September. I'll be going around doing my little thing, but that's only like one day. And in all honesty, the speech is pretty close every time. I start cutting stuff out, and sometimes I add stuff based on I knew who was going to be there and stuff. But it's pretty close to the same thing. I tried building a new one this year, but it doesn't take a lot of work, and it's just like a night here and there. And I love going to real estate meetups. So that's probably what I'll do a lot more of, because right now my wife will only let me go to one a week or one every other week because I have wife and kids. But once the kids are older, that won't be as big of an issue.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Glenn, if somebody's looking to get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
Okay, so I have glensutherland.com, one N, GLENSUTHERLAND. From that, you can subscribe to get into to meet me, and we can talk and stuff. But you can also like all that stuff comes straight to my email, and you can subscribe to some of the things I have there. I have the podcast, so that's iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube, and come find me there. It's Canadian Investing in the U.S., and literally, I just give it away. So I know I need to redo episode 1, but episode 1 literally just walks you through every single step you need to do, all the licenses, who you should call, and feel free to contact me if you want some help. I can connect you with CPAs. I can connect you with attorneys. Like I have the contacts, and I'm always willing to share.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Glenn, just want to say thanks so much for taking the time and sharing your success with us today.
Oh, thanks so much, Seth. This was fun.
Oh, no, this was a blast. So to you, our viewers, I wish you well on your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.